What's happening, everybody? It's your boy, John King Kong Carroll, and you're listening to SimBoxx Presents Let's Talk Boxing.
Welcome to the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. As always, I'm your host, Luke. Now, this is the beginning of an exciting new venture with the Let's Talk Boxing podcast, as unfortunately I'll be no longer joined by my previous co-host, Ewan. We'd like to wish him all the very best in his very exciting new work adventure that he's about to embark upon. Very big boots to fill as we move forward now with guest co-hosts throughout the next couple of weeks. I'll be joined by different figures from across the boxing world, boxers, managers, trainers, all jumping on to give their thoughts on the latest boxing news and headlines. This week I'm delighted to be joined by undefeated middleweight prospect Bradley Rea. He's 11-0, hails from Manchester. How are we doing, Brad?
I'm good, mate. I'm going to try and fill some very, very big boots left behind by you. But yeah, mate, happy to be here.
Absolutely. You know, he's got a big enough ego as it is, mate, so you're only going to be feeding that with those kind of comments. Yeah, so like I said, we wish him the very best. And a quick shout out to our sponsors, Clint Patrick. They help us bring this content weekly. So, Brad, let's get straight into it. We'll touch on your career to begin with. We'll talk through your most recent fight, and then we'll get on to what's been a very busy week. Big wins for Dillian Whyte, Ted Cheeseman, and others. Let's get straight into it, Brad. For those that might not know who you are, despite you becoming big time now with a fight out on Sky Sports.
Something like that, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I've been boxing in and about gyms for as long as I can remember. You know, I started when I was really young, about 5 or 6. I used to kind of go to kickboxing classes. I always used to get told that I don't use my feet. I'm only good with my hands. And then kind of when I got a bit older, eight-ish, started boxing, just kind of keep fit. I was a bit of a chubby kid by this point. Played a bit of football. Thought, you know, get involved for a little bit of fitness and stuff. Went down and, you know, I didn't fall in love with it straight away, but I didn't mind it. Kind of my dad then opened his own amateur gym in Charlton. And, you know, I think this is where I kind of fell in love with the sport, where, you know, when we started sparring and the closer we got to kind of like 11 years old and you can have your first fight, like a bit more real it got, and I thought, right, this is for me, this. And yeah, I had my first fight a couple of weeks after my 11th birthday and never looked back. I had 97 as an amateur. Lost about 25, you know, not the best amateur career, but, you know, I kept busy. A lot of them losses early on, and later on in my career, when I lost it was to the top lads. You know what I mean? Yeah, and, you know, I've boxed some good kids, boxed for England, been all over the world. And then, yeah, two years ago, decided to make the jump to the pro ranks, and yeah, you know, it's going well so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we know, you're undefeated, 10-0. The most recent of those victories coming on the undercard of Lawrence Okolie's world title victory, a big card on Sky Sports, of course, and broadcast to a big audience. You was the Facebook fight as well, so that again offered another platform for more of your family, friends, and people who maybe doesn't know who Bradley Rea is to get a bit of access. But before we get into the fight, how have you developed as a fighter, being on these bigger platforms, and, you know, the media that comes along with it, the interviews, being on that bigger stage? Do you feel like naturally you're made for that?
I wouldn't say naturally, no. It's quite daunting. You know, you put me in front of a ring in front of thousands of people, and I'll knock lumps out of someone. But put me in a room and give me a microphone and these cameras, it is a bit daunting. But you know, I did box at Manchester Arena in my 9th fight, so my fight before this, which was on a Matchroom show, and, you know, I kind of got a taste for it then. And if you know, if you think I wasn't very good this time, you should have seen me then. But you know, it's just all experience, it's learning, and I think, you know, my 9th fight and doing the press conferences, the workouts, the weigh-ins and stuff, you know what I mean? That time it probably benefited me. This time I was a little bit more relaxed, you know, used to it. I'd been there and done it before, and but it's just one of them things, you know. If I think, you know, I can do what I believe I can do in the sport. It's just something I'm going to have to get used to. And it's not. I'm not awful. I can talk.
I've had you on the channel a couple of times. Yeah, that's it.
You'll see me in a few years, and you won't be able to shut me up. You won't be able to get the mic off me.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. And I think that's the interesting aspect to doing this podcast today is given that, each podcast that we've done prior has been myself and you, and we've never really had a guest on. And although I've done a lot of interviews in person or via Zoom or via telephone interviews, actually doing a podcast with a boxer, it's very difficult to transition this into a conversation, as we were saying beforehand, and not making it an interview, because you just feel like you want to fire off question after question and find out as much as we can about you. So if I start firing off too many questions and you want to have your say on anything boxing, stop me at any point.
Yeah. Definitely will do. I get told sometimes I'm a bit too casual in interviews, so I think it'll probably be a bit better for me this anyway.
Yeah, so I'm really intrigued to get your thoughts on the fight with Lee Cutler. We've had a couple of DMs in the time since the fight, but it was a spectacular performance, Brad. Did you feel you was capable of that heading into the fight, or was you a bit surprised that you was landing these shots and you was able to drop him 3 times, get him out there in the first round, job done, box ticked, and on we go?
I definitely did think I was capable of it. I didn't think it'd go that soon. In my head, me and Blaine had spoken. I thought I'd get him out of there late. That's what I had in my head. I thought I'd break him down. I thought I'd bust him up, and I thought I'd get him out of there late. Obviously, got him in the first round, and again, it's something me and Blaine had said. Literally the morning of the fight. He said that if you get the chance, he said, take it. He said, put it on him. Don't be going in all guns blazing. He said, but if the chance comes, he said, put your foot on the gas and take it. And we knew I was capable of it. And kind of from that fight week in the bubble, and the way he was conducting himself in the bubble on the interviews and stuff, like, he didn't think I was capable of it. You could tell. And I kept saying to Blaine, kind of like, I said, he's got to get a shock here. He's going to get a shock. Like, because obviously we sparred about 2 years ago. And, it was a good spar. I come out of it feeling quite confident I'd beat him. But you could tell that he come out of it feeling very confident he'd beat me. And, I was a year and a half younger. At this age that I'm at, it's a big difference that, growing and maturing. And I just recently, especially the build up to this fight, I know I've been hitting hard because of this year out that we've had. It's kind of played into my hands. I've been able to do like my heavy strength conditioning and stuff. And, we've been able to work on a few different things. And, in the lead up to this fight, I've been hitting people hard, inspiring. I've been hurting people. I've been dropping people. And like, I just knew that if I landed clean, he's gonna get a shock. He's gonna get a shock, and as soon as I landed clean on him, before I kind of hurt him, I could see in his face. He thought, "Oh no," he said. He thought, "I didn't expect this." I could see it in his face, and then as soon as I landed clean, you could tell it. He didn't want to know, so I put my foot on the gas.
Yeah, fair play. I'll be completely honest with you, Brad. I missed the fight live. I tuned in to Facebook to watch the fight, thinking, and I knew I was running a couple of minutes late, and I tuned in, and your hand was being raised, and I was like, what's going on here? Is this start too early? Are they showing highlights from a previous fight? And then, obviously, I was able to scroll back through the time on Facebook, and I watched the fight back, and it was the thing that stood out for me from your performance. And again, not to blow smoke up your ass, I'm not that way inclined, but it was almost like the switch had been flicked when you seen that opportunity. You fell back into the ropes, and the ropes clearly held him up, and you just put your foot on the gas. It was effortless going through the gears, and the killer instinct really did kick in, and it was very impressive.
Yeah, that's another thing that like kind of been working on. It's kind of something that I've not had, but kind of that nastiness, that killer instinct, that being able to go through the gears, like you said, especially in my first few fights. Like, it's hard against journeymen anyway. When they could come negative and they took up. I couldn't do that against Van Pooch or whoever. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've said for a while that once I step up in opponents and they come trying to take my head off and they leave openings, I'd expose them. And I think as I continue to step up in opponents, you'll see that.
So how do you, when a fight's over that quick, how do you then deal with like the adrenaline or the nerves, the excitement, because you get in there and you're ready for, I think it was an 8-rounder, and you're ready for eight rounds. Yeah, 8 rounds back and forth, and you felt like you might have stopped in late. So you get in there, you're full of beans, you've trained hard for this fight. Is there a difficulty then in kind of winding down because you're so excited? How do you come back down to earth, if that makes sense?
You know what, mate? It's really something that I struggle with, not struggle with, but I have this feeling for, especially straight away after the fight, where, I'm still obviously I was in the bubble, I was down in London, and usually if I box in Manchester, my mates will be out in town, or go anywhere, and they'll be saying, do you want a drink? And I'm a bit like, no, for the first few hours, I'll just have waters, and I'm all right. But with this one, obviously I was down there, so it was a bit different, but, you have this feeling of like being lost, it's weird because everything I've done since the 1st of January, I've been on it, completely on it, me eating, no drinking, nothing, and, I've been absolutely bang on it, and it's the hardest I've ever trained, and everything in my life, even when I'm not boxing training, or everything I do has to be tailored up until this moment. Like me eating and going, obviously can't go out anywhere or anything at the moment, but me eating my mates, and this, everything's leading up to this moment, and then just like that, it's gone, it's done, and I've got nothing to look forward to now. I'm thinking and it's a really surreal feeling. I was speaking to a few, we've got a bit of a group chat going through lads like Ryan Oliver and Danny Wright and a few of the boxing lads, local Manchester lads. And I was talking to him about it in there, saying, did you get this feeling? And they were saying, yeah. And Ryan said, you can understand with Fury, when Fury sets into as an amateur, and Klitschko was the man. Klitschko was always the man, and it was always the end goal. And when he beat him, he said, he's just like, what do we do now? And in a way, I understand it, because, you have this mad feeling of, well, where do we go from here? What do we do tomorrow? You know what I mean? I don't have to get up out of bed and go for a run, and it's mad, but obviously it's just part of it that you've got to deal with, and hopefully it won't be too long until I get another fight day and I'm back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with a performance like that, the phone will be ringing very soon, and hopefully another big platform. Looking at, the idea behind that question came from, I always remember a few years back when Joshua was coming through, anti-Joshua, and he was knocking everybody out, and he had this crazy knockout record. And then he used to go back into the changing rooms, and he'd be doing pads, and he said...
Yeah, he used to finish rounds off, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and he used to finish the rounds on the pads, and that's where that question comes from. But moving on, looking at your social media, you have a very active following, shout out to the guys that follow Bradley Rea. But there was a couple of people that seem to have won a fair few quid on betting on you to win by stoppage.
Yeah, it seems that way. Not for me, I didn't, but I wish I would have been a bit more confident in myself.
Yeah, I think, the bookies had it, from what I seen at the time, they was like everybody else. They couldn't split it. You seem to have had the size advantage, but then you see some of the fights that, especially in this pandemic situation, where they get thrown together last minute, and Eddie Hearn loves to hype the hell out of them, and he describes them as 50-50 wars. So therefore, nobody knows firmly where to pin their cap on, and of course Bradley Rea fans are going to support Bradley Rea, Lee Cutler fans are going to support Lee Cutler, but the bookies didn't know how to split it, so there was some good money to be made out there. And as I say, some of your followers had a few quid on you, and yeah, it was a good night for them as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially if you look at my record, and I'm not, you won't think I'm a big hitter, but I know that I can punch. And like I said, I think in the last year I'm probably punching harder anyway. And I'm quite deceiving if you look at me. I said I don't really look much to it, but when they get in with me, it's they get a bit of a shock sometimes. And I knew I was capable of hurting them and getting them out of there. Like I said, I didn't think it would happen so soon. But everyone was asking me fight week now, what do you think's going to happen? And I was saying, look, I'm just going. I've got a job to do. I'm going to win. I wish I would have said, I'm going to do him. Getting done in the first round. But you're out on it.
Yeah, I always remember back in, is it 2010, 2011, when David Haye knocked out Audley Harrison, and it was one of the worst one-sided heavyweight world title fights I think I can remember. And straight after the fight, he said, I've told everyone back round 3. And then he went and knocked him out in round 3, and there was a whole kick-off. And I know that was with all due respect, a much higher platform. It was a world heavyweight title fight. But he was pulled in and he was told, is this betting irregularities? And, is this like fraud or whatever else? But yeah, I'm sure like it'd be quite interesting to be in your shoes and everyone asking, where am I putting my money? Like, what round are you going to do? Are you going to stop him? Is it going to be points?
Because as well, it's the first fight where like people have been able to bet on as well. Like my mates love it. They've been asking since my debut, can you bet when I'm boxing like some Slovakian journeyman who's like won about 3 fights out of 300? Saying, can you bet on it? I was like, man, I don't think the odds are going to be that good anyway. But yeah, because it was the first time, it was, I think everyone was on it. But like you said, my mates owe me a pint anyway for you, my mates, definitely.
Yeah, we'll hold them to that. So looking forward, Brad, as we inevitably do, we look forward in boxing. It never stands still. We move forward, and the targets are constantly changing. A couple of names of what I throw at you. Firstly, Idris Virgo. We've seen this potential fight crop its head up, and he divides opinion. He's got his background in, is it Love Island, Big Brother, something like that. He does his social media thing.
I think he was on it for a day or two, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair to Idris, he's undefeated. He thinks very highly of himself, and he's been calling for some big fights. Your name being one of them. Others out there. Where are we sitting on the Idris Virgo situation, Brad?
For me, mate, realistically, it's a fight that's just never going to happen. Like, I'd box him tomorrow if they offered it us. But I think you've seen, like you say, there's so many fights that he mentions, and if he was a real fighter, he would have boxed these lads, or he would have boxed at least one of them. If you're calling out these lads and you're having so much stuff, so you can tell there's no backing up what he's saying. Realistically, mate, it's not going to happen. If they offered it me by some miracle, I'd jump on it, mate. I'd love to be the one to give him a slap, but I just can't see it. 9 times out of 10, his next fight will be another 4-rounder against some light middleweight who's never won a fight. But yeah, mate, if he wants it, he knows where I am. But I'm looking ahead now, mate. I'm not looking behind me. I'm looking ahead. And like you said, mate, there's a few other good fights to be made.
That's it. And the other name that I was going to mention is Nathan Heaney. So for the listeners that don't know who Nathan Heaney is, he's the guy that has this crazy following in Stoke, and you see it in this small hall. I think he's the guy that comes out to Tom Jones. Is that the video that went viral?
Yeah, that's him.
He's got some following. He's undefeated, 11 wins, 3 knockouts. Very similar record to yourself. Now, that's much more of a competitive fight, and I've seen you guys go back and forth on Twitter. There's a genuine interest, and that seems to me, from the outside looking in, maybe you can tell me different, but the sort of fight where you'll shake hands before, you'll fight, you shake hands afterwards and go for a pint, and, it's best man wins.
Definitely, mate. No hard feelings. Like, he's a good lad, very good fighter. But when I say professional, mate, these are the type of fights I want to be in. These big ticket sellers. Obviously I do well selling tickets. He's a massive ticket seller, and I remember I seen him on Twitter kind of saying, "King's Hall in Stoke is a lion's den. Nobody wants to come here and fight me." And I thought, I'll come and fight you. You know what I mean? And so yeah, we have a few back and forths on Twitter. Nothing, disrespectful. Sorry, disrespectful. You know what I mean? But I feel I'd beat him. He obviously feels he'd beat me. There's been big interest in it from my side and from his side. I've even few Stoke lads follow me on the Twitter and that now saying like, that's a good fight. So yeah, if I could have any fight next, that'd be the fight I'd have 100%.
Fantastic. So obviously we know he's linked up with Frank Warren. What's your situation like at the minute? Are you with Matchroom? Is it a fight-by-fight deal? Where are we at?
Still managed and promoted by Steve Woods, mate, VIP.
Shout out to Steve Wood.
Yeah, shout out to Steve Woods. I've been mithering him, mate, for 12 months. Anything I said, super middleweights need a fight. Give me a shout. Late notice, I'm ready. and he's been saying something will come up, and fair play, got me this shot on the Matchroom bill. But yeah, he said with a good performance here that it might look like Eddie will come knocking, but nothing yet. Let him off. He's been in Gibraltar for the week, hasn't he? But if something comes up, it comes up. If not, then it leaves me in a position where I can go and box on a Heaney on a Warren show.
Yeah.
If I'm not tied down, it could be a bit of a positive because I could go and have that fight. Whereas if I got signed to Matchroom, it would probably not happen. But yeah, it's just one of them. I feel like I'm definitely good enough, and it's one thing that turning over with a smaller promoter and not the big backing of these TV companies. It's something that I've always had in my head that and I've always been told kind of if you are good enough, it'll come eventually. And you've got to be patient. And when I turned up, you get a lot of lads who, when they turn over, they think, I'm going to be famous, I'm going to be on TV, I'm going to make loads of money, I'm going to be a pro boxer. And it doesn't work like that. It doesn't. Obviously, when I turned over, I'd been around the game a long time. I knew what I was getting myself in for. And, I've got belief in myself that I am good enough to be on that stage. And if it doesn't come after this fight, there'll be another fight that I'm going to win. Where I'll be a good kid and there'll be another fight. And eventually, I'm gonna be where I belong.
Great attitude, Brad. Great attitude. And it's going to be a journey that we're all going to follow with a bit of excitement. But let's move forward. You mentioned it there. Gibraltar, Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, Dillian Whyte Alexander Povetkin, the rematch. It was heavily anticipated. It was due a couple of times previously. It was a great card. This is a sort of card, maybe you'll agree or disagree that on paper I wasn't too excited about, but the closer it got on fight week and we've seen the anticipation, the face-off, so we've seen the settings as well in Gibraltar. It looked amazing. It really started to grow and I got really excited for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yeah, like you said, mate, as it got closer and you kind of looked at each fight individually, you were like, "What are these? They're only going to be good fights. They're only going one way." Especially the Cheeseman Metcalf fights. When all these Matchroom shows got made, they got announced all at the same time, didn't they? That was the fight that stood out to me, and I thought, I can't wait for that one. It's only going one way, that fight, definitely.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That you have certain fights that they deliver exactly what they say in the tin, and that seems to be the tagline for Ted Cheeseman's career. In all due respect, every fight he says, I can box, I can fight, I can go to war, and it delivers. The fight with Fitzgerald, even the loss to Sergio Garcia, and we will break down the card fight by fight. We'll go through each fight, but we'll start on Ted Cheeseman. The fight with Sergio Garcia, it was a difficult loss, and it was quite one-sided towards the end, but it was still the kind of fight that you was engrossed in watching because you felt like
it was good to watch
at any point. The fight with Sam Egerton, that was like an old-fashioned rock'em sock'em, the old video game where it was just two robots fighting in the middle of the ring.
Definitely.
And again now with Metcalf. But I seen on your social media, did you have a bit of a move around with Metcalf recently?
Yeah, right. So my first bar back in September, it was after that initial lockdown. Back in the gym for a few weeks, and then my first bar back was with Metcalf. He punched all out. He punched my head in me, but he's a great fighter. And I backed him to beat Cheeseman. Fair play to Cheeseman. He got the job done and gutted for JJ, but it was a great fight, and he's proved that he belongs at that level, definitely. And he's in that mix now of them light middleweights, the British light middleweights, because there's a lot out there. And, there's so many good fights to be made. And I think he proved that he's at that level, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought JJ Metcalf was in terrific shape. How he makes 154 pounds, I'll never know. His back was huge. I'm walking around about 16.5 stone, and I thought he looked bigger than me. He was massive.
Yeah, he's a beast, mate. He's a beast, and he's strong, solid as well. And he's clever. When I sparred him, he'll do little things where he's clever and he's trying to set traps for you and stuff. But yeah, he's a great fighter, and I think it just shows how good Cheeseman is as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you get these kind of 50-50 British title fights as well, you chuck a Lonsdale belt on the line there, and it just elevates the fight completely. And both guys just have added impetus and added motivation to make it a great fight. And now Ted Cheeseman at 25 years of age, he feels like he's been around a lifetime, but he's a two-time welterweight champion. And I think it's really interesting, Brad, to look at where Ted Cheeseman's at with his career, because he's of the domestic light middleweights. You've got Liam Smith at the top, but after that, Ted Cheeseman's number one, and you got the likes of Anthony Fowler calling his name. You've got Troy Williamson there or thereabouts. Hamza Hamed Shiraz as well, who fights on the Frank Warren label. He's there or thereabouts. So I think it's a bustling division, but it's interesting to see now where Ted Cheeseman goes. Does he stay around and take on more domestic challenges? Does he try again for the European title? Or, a couple of wins and he's fringe world title level? And 18 months ago or 12 months ago, we wouldn't be saying that about Ted Cheeseman. His career was on the line after the loss to Fitzgerald. Really interesting.
It just shows how fast it can change as well. Who's got the European now? Is it still Garcia? I think it is, isn't it?
Sergio Garcia, yeah.
See, I think since that fight, he's improved so much, mate. And, I'm not saying he beat him because Garcia is a good fighter. But he's improved so much kind of after that first Garcia loss. I know he was only so young, but you're kind of looking at it thinking that's the type of loss where you just don't know if he's going to bounce back, if he's going to be the same. And, hats off to him. He's gone back to the drawing board. I think, obviously realised that he needs to use his boxing ability a bit more, which he clearly has. Yeah. But early on, I think he kind of got into that. He was being in entertaining fights all the time and people are enjoying it and this and that. But, I think then he come back against Fitzgerald, didn't he? Boxed great against Fitzgerald in the first half of the fight. Did slow down a little bit. A lot of people thought he got the win. A lot of people thought he should have won. And, hats off to him. I think if you would have looked at him after that Garcia loss, you would have kind of wrote him off and said the Fowlers, the Fitzgeralds, they're going to crack on and he's going to kind of linger at that British level. But, he's gone back to the drawing board, like I said, and showing how good he is. Yeah,
I think, personally, my opinion, for what it's worth, if he was to stay at domestic level, I'd only want to see him fight Anthony Fowler. I think if you go back to the beginning of 2019, that looked like the fight that was in-house for Matchroom. It was the big fight that was building up towards, and Fowler lost to Fitzgerald, and Garcia beat Cheeseman, and it all kind of fell apart. But I think there's definitely legs in that, and especially with the momentum both guys are on. Fowler's rebuilt since Fitzgerald, and Cheeseman's rebuilt since Garcia. Some really good wins. Fowler won by knockout on the same card as yourself, and both. If there's going to be one last domestic clash for Ted Cheeseman before he tries again at European or fringe world title level, I think it's Fowler for me.
Yeah, I think that's the one Ant wants because he's not had that British title, has he?
No.
Fowler. I think that's definitely the fight that he wants, and like you say, but would Cheeseman what a kind of risk where he's there now and he could push off a loss to Fowler? It's a setback, but I don't think he's the type of person to shy away from. If the right offer's there, I think he'll definitely take that fight. But like you said, there's so many other good fights to be made elsewhere. Like Fitzgerald's back, you've got Troy Williamson and Shiraz over on the Warren side, and it's absolutely booming that division at the moment.
Yeah, let's move through the card from Saturday. Of course, Dillian Whyte Povetkin was the headline act, but there was plenty of other fights for us to get our teeth sunk into. A fight definitely close for home for myself and certainly for you, being Campbell Hatton making his much-anticipated professional debut. Where did you sit on this, Brad, in the build-up to the fight of people thinking it was getting opportunities that maybe he didn't deserve given that his surname was Hatton, and we all know about Ricky and what he done for Manchester boxing and taking 20,000 fans over to Vegas. He made his debut in 1997 in Widnes, and he was the last fight on the bill, and there's probably 20 people. Yeah. And the total chalk and cheese approach, rather than what Campbell Hatton had. He was on, a yacht in Gibraltar, and then he was fighting in front of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions on Sky Sports and wherever else people watch the fights. Where did you sit on that? Was you happy for Campbell getting that opportunity, or do you kind of see where the detractors are coming from?
I think it goes both ways, mate. I think it goes both ways. On the one hand, he's an inexperienced raw amateur, and he has got this big opportunity. He is on a big platform. He will be getting more money. But then on the other hand, he's got it's a lose-lose for him. He boxes, you know, chins some journeyman, or they've got him a rubbish opponent. He boxes and, you know, wins on points, doesn't look good, or he's got no, you know, he's just going to come under so much scrutiny. But it's just something that's part and parcel and comes with it, you know. You know, there's a lot of boxers out there who are giving him a bit of shit and saying, like, you know, he's only in this position because of his dad. You know, this and that. He doesn't deserve to be there. Any boxer in the world, if you had the opportunity, you take it. You know what I mean? It'd be stupid not to. And you know, I think I put a tweet out Saturday night, like, it's a 20-year-old kid. You know, you're not going to rush him. You're going to take your time with him, and you know, I wish that people would just let him grow and, you know, let him develop in his own time, which it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? With the platform he's got, social media now, it's not going to happen. But, you know, I think it's going to be hard for him. I do think, you know, I've seen him in the gym, I've seen him sparring, like, he has got the talent, and that we seen on Saturday night wasn't the best combo Latin. No way. You know, I've seen him spar a lot better. I've seen him spar good lads and hold his own. But I just think, you know, it'll come with time. He doesn't have the privilege of being able to develop kind of off screen, away from the lights, you know, like I did, yeah, or like other lads did. And like you say, you know, there's a lot of, I've got loads of time for the lads, you know. I think proper down to earth kid, just like his dad. He's grounded, and but, you know, there's a lot of jealous people out there, and like I said, anyone in the world would have taken that opportunity that they're giving him. And, you know, I just hope people can kind of see that and take a backward step and, you know, let him develop in his own time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm certainly in agreement with you there, Brad. I think if you look at this and you think, you know, live by the sword, die by the sword, that, yeah, he's got a great opportunity, he's got a huge platform, but that brings its own pressure in terms of he's got to live up to that expectation. And, you know, if you went under the radar a little bit, like yourself, or like, you know, your young prospects, and you go and fight 4-rounders against people that, you know, we might not even be able to pronounce their surnames, and you kind of come up, build your record. And if you have nerves on your debut, and if the nerves get to you and you gas out after 2 rounds, that's not forgotten. That's not remembered. You know, it's forgotten, and all people see is the W on Boxing. He's made his debut in front of 500 people. By the way, how good was it to see fans back in Gibraltar? 500 sounds like 50,000. But yeah, he's gone in there and he's made his debut. He's had to, you know, realise on such a big platform that, you know, he can't go looking for the knockout from the first minute. And if he is eager to impress these guys that he's fighting, people like Jesus Ruiz, who's 0-10, but he'd only been stopped once in those 10 losses, they're there for the full 4 rounds. And he was clearly to please. But I think it's a great journey. And, you know, people saying that Matchroom overhyped him, well, what else are they going to do? He's got the Hatton surname.
Definitely. They're going to take advantage of it, aren't they? 100%. And like you say, with all that hype, and, you know, we've got documentaries being made about him, mate. You know what I mean? For his debut, it's mental. It's absolutely mental. You know, no wonder the kid was nervous. What do you expect? But like you say, it's a hard situation that he's in, and, you know, he's a hard worker, mate. He grafts, and if anyone can come good, he will come good, definitely, because he puts the work in and he deserves it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if we just kind of, you know, write off might be the wrong term to use, but if we just accept, or if these detractors, these haters, these online people that like to slag off anything that they see, you know, maybe it's jealousy, who knows, but if they just write off the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, and just think, you know, he's going to step up the levels very slow. He's got limited amateur experience. As you said yourself, he's clearly very talented. So there's no point in rushing him. He's 20 years of age. So we just need to accept and be happy that he's going to learn on the job. Look at Anthony Joshua, he won 4 titles in 16 fights, and he had an Olympic background. Campbell Hatton's not got that. I think he's going to get to 16, 17, 18, maybe 20 and all before we see him take a real step up, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, take the time. Like you said, mate, there's a lot of jealous people out there, mate. And even me, sometimes I think, I'm a boxer from Manchester. I want to document him. I'm a City fan, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? It's the way the game is. It's the way he works, and puts the work in, and you know, if, like I said before, you know, if you're good enough, eventually it'll show. And he puts the work in, and he needs time to develop. Yeah, but if he's good enough, eventually, in a few years down the line, like we're doing with Conor Ben, we might go, you know what, the kid's come good. And I really hope he does, because he's a top lad.
You know, you took it off the tip of my tongue there, Brad, with Conor Ben, because I remember, was it the second fight of Conor Ben's career where he said he went back to the changing rooms and he was crying, even though he got the win. He was gutted at the way he performed. And then his dad kind of took a backward step and he left it to Tony Sims in the team. And then he had the war with Cedric Paynoid, which was one of the best 6-rounders I've ever seen in my life. Both guys up and down like a yo-yo. That was his gut check, his acid test. And now he's 15, 16-0. He's beating fringe contenders. He's almost surpassed British title level. And, he's fighting Samuel Vargas in his 16th, 17th fight, who's a former world title challenger. And I think that's the kind of path that we're going to go down with Campbell Hatton. He's going to get in there at some point. He's going to have an acid test. Maybe it'll come against somebody we didn't expect it to be against, and he'll get not found out as such, but we'll have to check his minerals, and, he'll get knocked on the chin, and we'll see if he can take a punch, if he's got the heart like his dad did. But going back to
that's what I'm thinking of telling me. He might not have, the skill set a lot of kids have got at the moment, but his game is his game as he come. And I think, like you say, when that test comes, he'll show you that it's not all about the skill sometimes, you know what I mean? You might, the lad who he's in with might be a little bit more skillful for him, but he's game, mate, and he's got a massive heart. And, I think we'll see that down the line when he gets in some good fights.
I love the fact that he was throwing that left hook to the body. That was a bit of a surreal moment for me. Like, I was pinching myself. Like, am I watching Ricky or am I watching Campbell? That was beautiful to watch. But even as a Manchester United fan, the only time you'll ever see me singing Blue Moon is when Ricky Hatton's walking out, or now when Campbell Hatton's walking out. And when that starts, you would have thought I was the biggest King Clancy fan or Sean Gorter fan in the world. I was singing along, and then I made sure no one was looking. And then I was like, you blew this and that. But yeah, what a surreal moment, man. And as a Manchester lad yourself, close to the Hattons, and a City fan, it must have been very special for yourself as well.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up watching Ricky. I probably wouldn't be boxing if it wasn't for Ricky. When I was a kid, and it's just great. It's great to see him. It's great to see the backing he's getting as well. All of Ricky's fans are coming out, and it's kind of in a way it'll be good for Manchester boxing as well. These fans coming out, they might come to a show I'm on. Obviously, wouldn't just watch me on my own, right? You might come and watch another lad, there's other Manchester lads coming up, like to Keeve, you know what I mean? And it's only got to do us good. Once them fans are back at the arena, I'm itching to see Welterweight Blue Moon back at the arena, definitely. And I'm a bit gutted about the Oasis tune, though. Like I've always said, when I box for a title, if I box for a title, it kind of like this King's All, that environment, a little bit hostile, and that I'd always have fucking in the bushes for my entrance song, and I was just gonna tuck it, aren't I? So that's sat out the window. I'm gonna have to think of something different.
So let's move into the main event, because of course we're going to follow Campbell Hatton, and we look forward to that, the journey for another Manchester boxer. And if he's as a tenth of what his dad was, we're in for a real ride. But let's move into the main event. It was a huge fight. It was a huge shock. But before we get into looking at this fight, let's go back to August, Brad. What do you remember of the first fight and that stunning knockout of Dillian Whyte by Alexander Povetkin? It was out of the blue. He'd been down twice in the fourth, come back in that fifth round. Everyone thought he was past it. He was there for the taking, and he unleashes this hellacious left hook, left uppercut. It was like a hybrid shot, and it totally separated Dillian Whyte from his senses. It was a brutal knockout. Yeah,
it was an unreal shot, mate. And I just think, it really did have Povetkin's number. He was all over him, but with a fighter with that experience, he's Olympic gold medalist, is, you know what I mean? Obviously, he's getting on a little bit now, but that's all experience. And you can tell he was kind of he was weighing the shot up, the way he was moving his upper body. And even in Saturday's fight, first few rounds, when I was watching Whyte, I was thinking, he's going to get nailed with this again here. He's going to get nailed, because it kind of looked like he hadn't learned. The way he was kind of leaning in and dipping over to the side, and I thought I could see Povetkin landing the exact same shot again. But yeah, you know, it was a great first fight, and White's always in good fights. You know what I mean? It's as game as they come. So you know, I was really looking forward to Saturday. I thought it was just going to, you know, to take off where they left off last time, and you know, I think that's the best Dillian Whyte we've seen. Come in great shape. You know what I mean? There's been a few times where he's been on the scales and he's been a bit like not looking the best there, mate. But you know, he actually looked like slim. He trimmed down, and yeah, you know, it looked like a different fighter in there. And you know, I do like watching him. I like every punch he throws, you know, like he wants to take your head off. He throws with bad intentions. You know, he wants to hurt you. And you know, some of them, they are a little bit wild and a bit, but you know, it is just the way that he is. And I think that's obviously with Povetkin, well-schooled fighter, like I said, Olympic champion, Russian, you know, the way they are. I think that's kind of why he exposed him last time. But yeah, you know, he was on a mission on Saturday night, White, and you know, he got the job done.
Yeah, he come out with the robe with blazoned with RIP Hagler, which I thought was a nice touch. You could see when he was bouncing on the stage, he was jumping up and down on the spot. There was a lot of
there. When he was walking out, I thought, wow, he's up for this. And, you know, I thought he was going to put his head through the roof, but I thought, yeah, you could just tell you know, his demeanour, and it was, you know, he knew he was supremely confident he was getting the job done. And yeah, I think on his ring walk, I remember seeing, oh no, he's going to do this here, definitely.
Yeah, so like you said, you touched on it yourself, that every punch was through with bad intentions, and he'd said now since the fight's finished that he was looking for the first round knockout, and he went in there, all guns blazing, and he was throwing left hooks, right hooks, everything but the kitchen sink at Alexander Povetkin. He really wanted to make a statement, and you know, for a couple of times in there, like there's two ways of looking at this. Like, yeah, Dillian Whyte went for it, and he wobbled Povetkin, he was off balance, this, that, and the other. But as you said yourself, Brad, he looked like he had he gave the opportunities to Povetkin to counter punch him, and that's how it came around in the first fight. He got caught square, and there was a couple of times, as you said, in that first round in particular, but in rounds 2 and 3, even when Povetkin was getting busted up, at any point that left uppercut or left hook could have come in again, because Dillian Whyte was so heavy on that front foot.
At that weight against such a well-schooled fighter as well. You know, there was kind of watching through my fingers thinking, oh, not again, please not again, because, you know, you could tell that he'd done it properly this time and he was in great shape and he was up for the fight. But, you know, it only takes one at that weight, and one against Povetkin, you know, like you've seen in the first fight, you know, it's going to wipe you out.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what a great knockout when it did come, though. He, as I say, he started busting up Povetkin in rounds 2 and 3. You could see the markings coming on the left-hand side of Povetkin's face where the right hand had been landing at Dillian Whyte. And then he shook him with a 1-2 straight down the pipe, knocked him into the ropes. And I think it was a right hook. And then he wobbled across the ring and he caught him with that, you know, devastating left hook. And
great finish.
He managed to get up. He got to his feet. Absolute warrior. 41, nearly 42 years of age. He's been through some wars in his career. He made it to his feet. He would have fought on if he could, but, you know, there was no way the ref was letting that go on. And it was sweet revenge for Dillian Whyte.
Yeah, definitely. And I think fair play to him after it as well. He said, you know, we'll do it again if he wants. Because obviously, I think they had a rematch clause in the first fight, didn't they? But he's obviously thought, Povetkin give me the rematch, you know what I mean, when he knocked me out. So I owe it to him to give him the rematch. But I think I wouldn't want to see it again personally. I think it'd just be the same story. But you know, where does Whyte go from here? Now, obviously, he's mandatory for the WBC. He's mandatory for, which he has been for about 5 years anyway before we got beat. But you know, it's looking very likely Joshua Fury are going to fight. They're going to have a second fight, and you know, where does he go? He's just going to be waiting around for so long. Does he take another big fight where it's going to be Wilder, or you know what I mean, someone like Ruiz? Which are risky fights. If he loses that spot. You know, it's kind of a bit of a limbo for him. Like, I don't really know where he goes. Does he just hang about and risk inactivity for that big fight? And, you know, it's a bit of a hard situation he's in.
I think for me, the interesting thing is that you know, we're discussing now whether or not he should just sit on what he's got, which is this WBC mandatory. You know, he's not officially been reinstated, but we're all thinking that he's got this interim world title, which, Brad, I don't want to waste too much time talking about it, but since it's come up, I'm going to go off on a bit of a rant here. Why the hell have we got a WBC interim heavyweight champion when we've got an active champion? You look at the UFC, and we know that we've got a UFC interim champion when their champion is injured, or like Conor McGregor when he came over to boxing. So we had an interim champion while he was gone. Why have we got Alexander Povetkin or Dillian Whyte carrying around a strap? Like, they're not champion. Tyson Fury is the WBC champion. It's absolutely absurd. And again, we could spend the whole podcast talking about this and going off about the governing bodies. It's bizarre.
There's just so many, you know, silver champions, you know, intercontinental, international champions, and you know, you don't know who's coming and going. And I think that's why when you said before about Cheeseman and Metcalf, and it's for the British title, and it just has that extra edge. That British title is still one of the belts that is kind of so prestigious, and like, you know, it still holds all of its weight that it used to. And I think that's why you get such good fights for it. Whereas even some of these world titles now, you like getting world champions through emails and stuff, you know, like Tiafimo says to Haney, he calls him the email champ, doesn't it? But it's true, you know what I mean? Even was it Nicola Adams was she was the same, and then Drew, and you know, she'd had never won a world title fight, and she was world champion. You know, it's just mad how it works. And for me as a fighter, you know, you won't say no, but you won't be happy with that. You know what I mean? You'd want to win it in the ring, and you'd want to go and beat, you know, a proper champion. But it's just the way the sport's going, mate. And I think it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get any better.
Yeah, it's bizarre because this week we had Juan Estrada elevated to WBC franchise champion. So then we can see Cesar Rungvisai fight for the WBC regular title. But then how can Rungvisai, for example, then call himself the number one WBC is in terms of WBC flyweight champion when he's been given that?
They must know deep down that, you know, that they're not. But it's just greed, mate, on the governing body's behalf, innit? It's just charging more sanctioning fees. The more belts and more fees you get to charge, the more money they're making. And, you know, it's just running the sport into the ground.
Yeah, it's frustrating, very frustrating. There's not too many things I'd take from the UFC and improve boxing, but that's certainly one of them.
Definitely.
Sort of overriding governing body that could take away these things. It's never going to happen, but we can live in hope. But yeah, going back to my original point with Dillian Whyte, it's almost like this has happened. He's almost like the right guy in the right place at the wrong time, because if he could go back 2 years, he was still in this position back then. And he took difficult fights, and that's how he lost the WBC mandatory position. If he had took what we're saying now and saying, just sit on what you've got, maybe take a couple of knockovers, a couple of keep actives, and then his shot would have come. He would have got a fight with Deontay Wilder or definitely Tyson Fury. But now if he sits on this, he's 34 years of age now. So we're looking at 12 months at least to get these two Fury-AJ fights. I dare say if they go 1-1, there'll be a third fight. So there'll be a rubber. So we could be looking at Dillian Whyte approaching 35, 36, 37 years of age before he gets a world title shot. It'd be years past his peak. And there's a real possibility of Dillian Whyte, you know, I think he's the third best heavyweight in the world at the minute. I think that win over Povetkin elevates him to behind Joshua and Fury. But there's a real possibility he's going to, his peak years are going to pass him without opportunities to fight for a world title. And say what you want about Dillian Whyte, but you look at his resume compared to every other heavyweight world title challenger the past 10 years. Anthony Joshua didn't have the resume that Dillian Whyte had when he got the shot with Charles Martin. Tyson Fury didn't. Dominic Breazeale. Who else has had world title shots? Eric Molina, who got knocked out by Fabio Wardley on Saturday. They've had world title shots. And, you know, you're not telling me that any of these guys, Luis Ortiz, Andy Ruiz before the first Joshua fight, none of these guys have got the resume of Dillian Whyte, and he's beat Parker, Brown, Helenius, Povetkin, and not received a world title shot. It's absolutely bizarre. And that's not me speaking as a Dillian Whyte fan. That's just me looking at it as black and white. Yeah, he's, you know, there's been eliminators that he's been asked to fight, and maybe he should have fought Pulev, and maybe he should have fought Luis Ortiz. But look at who he has beat. And for me, that is world title challenger, like contention for me.
Yeah, I think with them fights as well, it's not that, you know, it's not that he's ducking them fights, the Pulev or the Ortiz fights, because he's shown that he'll get him with anyone. But yeah, mate, like you said, I think the talk's clicking, and I think he could be running out of time a little bit, which would be a shame, mate, because he at least deserves his shot. And if he come all this way and didn't get his shot, it'll be an absolute liberty. But then I think he will, and because he's been waiting so long, he'll just think whatever comes up, he's got to take, and just think it's going to be a little bit too late for him.
Unfortunately so, but let's move forward, Brad. We look forward to what comes next for Dillian Whyte. We could have spent the entire podcast talking about Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, but myself and Ewan, we made a promise that we won't talk about that fight until it's signed, so I've got to continue that promise. So we can't go into that in too much depth until it's signed. But we look forward to what's next for Dillian Whyte. I think if we talk about these world titles that aren't actually world titles. You look at Trevor Bryant in America, he's fighting under Don King. He's got the WBA regular title. Now, not for the title, but for the fact of just taking him out, I think Dillian Whyte should go down that kind of route. And, if there are fringe world titles, not that I want him to get the bounce, but just to clean up, so if he's WBC interim champion, if he's WBA regular champion, if he's WBO gold champion, just go and get these titles just for the sake, then he can't be avoided. I think that would be
definitely. He's in that position, then, didn't he, where no matter what, he has the options. Obviously, he's looking at all the belts are going to be held by one person anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But if he's mandatory with a few different governing bodies, then he's 100% going to get the shot in there.
Yeah, so that's it. You either go down the route of trying to force it by accomplishments and trying to force the world title shot by winning the correct fights, or, as we first mentioned, when I first put it to you about who he fights next, he could also get the big money fights, Ruiz, Wilder. That'd be huge paydays. And if he
Usyk's mandatory, and he's for the WBO. But I couldn't see him beating Usyk, to be honest. And I think, I don't think that's the fight for him if he wants to get that world title shot.
Do you think he beats either of Andrew Ruiz or Deontay Wilder?
I think, mate, I honestly think I don't think Wilder's ever going to be the same now. I think now that people have seen, put it on him and his eyes goes a bit, I think, they've got the blueprint now, and I think with Whyte's style, I think he could stop him, mate. I really do. There was that fear factor around him for so long. People, obviously he's an unbelievable puncher, and I really wouldn't be surprised if he was to fall right in 2 or 3 rounds. But I don't think he's ever going to be the same now, Wilder. Ruiz looking great under Eddie Reynoso at the moment, but I think after that second Joshua fight, I never believe how good of a shape he's in or whatever until I see him on the scales and his weight's down, and he's looking slim, because there was just so many pictures and videos knocking about for that rematch, saying how serious he's taking it and how good shape he's in. And he got on the scales, and it was the opposite on it. But so no matter how many pictures he puts on his Instagram saying he's ready and he's in good shape, I'm not buying it this time. But a fit and in shape Andy Ruiz is a handful for anyone in that division. Yeah. But would he beat Whyte? I don't know, mate. It's a fight I'd definitely like to see, though.
Yeah, I think I'm really intrigued with Andy Ruiz, and we might as well touch on it at the minute because he's had his fight announced officially with Chris Arreola. He's fighting May 1st, and we complain about what's PPV and what's PPV or what's not PPV over here. We complain about the £20 charge from Matchroom. This fight's gone for $50 to watch on TV in America. It's bizarre. But with Andy Ruiz, he's got such a big...
That's another thing at the moment, mate. Pay-per-view fights, and I think, it used to be, if you're paying pay-per-view, you're paying for the best of the best, aren't you? And now, you just throw anyone on it, and you know what I mean? Chisora Parker, that's not a pay-per-view wave, is it? There's no world title on the line, and I think I'd rather pay for Katie Taylor and Jonas as a headline. I just think some of the cards at the moment that are being put on pay-per-view are a joke, and you're paying, I don't know how much for your Sky or your BT or whatever, or your dodgy box, or your dodgy box for all you villains out there, not me. But you're paying for that anyway, and you shouldn't have to pay for additional for these level fights. You don't mind doing it for the great fights, for the great undercards, which it should be if it's pay-per-view. You don't mind paying, but it's just happening well too much at the moment.
It really is, yeah. But like I was saying, I was touching on Ruiz, and I think he's got such a big name, a big reputation for the win against Joshua. But if you look at his record, the win against Joshua is so far above everything else he's achieved.
Yeah,
he lost to Joseph Parker in a close fight, and his best wins after that, I think, is Alexander Dimitrenko, which was the fight before Joshua, and then he coming in such bad shape for the rematch. I think there's a lot for Ruiz as a former unified heavyweight champion of the world that he still needs to prove, in my opinion. I think
there's a lot of unanswered questions with you.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's going to be really interesting. And I think that's partly why I was so intrigued to get him back in the ring, because I'm not too sure if he'll ever beat Joshua again if he was to fight. I think Joshua will have his number. I think Fury has his number. But I think for Ruiz, it's almost like he got the challenge, he reached the top and he dropped back down again. It's almost like he's got to start all over again. I think Whyte against Ruiz is a great fight.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, styles make fights, and that fight's only going one way, isn't it? It's it's going to be entertaining, and especially at that weight, it's it's a hard one. I think I might go with Whyte, but then I think it's hard to say that without seeing Ruiz under Eddie Reynoso, because he's obviously a good coach and he's obviously working wonders. If they get Andy on the old stakes, you never know, do you? Whyte might be getting it.
It's a great stable, to be fair, over there with Canelo, Valdez, Ryan Garcia, Frankie Sanchez, and obviously, of course, Andy Ruiz. It's a great stable. But let's quickly touch on this weekend coming, Brad, because we're going to run out of time here. We've got Carl Frampton.
I'll talk to you all day, mate. Don't worry about me.
We've got Carl Frampton. He bids to make history as the first man from the island of Ireland to be a 3-weight world champion back in 2014. He beat Kiko Martinez to become bantamweight world champion. He beat Leo Santa Cruz in 2016 to become featherweight world champion, and now he looks to take on and defeat Jamel Herring for the WBO super featherweight world title. As I say, Carl Frampton's a great guy. He's had a great career, some great wins, value for money every time he steps through those ropes. But he's up against it here, and Jamel Herring, a big, tough, fit American. He's advanced in years. He's older than what you realise. Jamel Herring at 34, 35 years of age. His height, reach, size advantage over Frampton. It's going to be a tough night's work for the guy from Belfast.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a massive Frampton fan. Massive Frampton family. I think he's probably one of the most likable guys, in British boxing at the moment. And I really hope he does it. I think he deserves it. Obviously, getting to Warrington, it was a bit of a setback for him. But if you look, some of the fights he's been in, like the Santa Cruz fights and stuff, and he cleared, and even in the Warrington fight later on, you can tell he found that extra percent where you need it in them big fights, and obviously it didn't come off him in the Warrington fight. But I think if maybe he could drag Herring into a fight like that, and with Herring, obviously it's a great fighter, but I think a lot of his success he has is he's a bit awkward and it's a bit hard to deal with. Frampton's a very experienced fighter. He's been in with most styles, most types of fighters. And yeah, mate, I think it's a hard one to call, but I'd absolutely love for Carl to do it. I really would.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's put yourself into Carl's boots and imagine you're across from Jamel Herring, and there's 5 inches in height difference. I'm not sure what it is in reach, but there's a big reach differential as well. How are you approaching this fight as Carl Frampton, given that, you're so much shorter and the reach isn't really there? You're trying to get on his chest and pin yourself there and stay there all night. You can't really stay on the outside. How are you approaching this fight, Brad?
Yeah, with me, obviously, it's something I've never really had to deal with. But for me, I think he either needs to be on his chest, working, or well out of range, moving. He can't be sitting on that edge of range where, if he sits there, Herring's going to be happy just to pick him off. Like you say, the reach difference is Herring's edge of range and be massively out of range for Carl. So yeah, I think a lot of head movement, a lot of feints and triggers, get inside, get them bursts off, and then he needs to be gone. He don't want to be hanging about. But it's hard when you're in with a fighter like that who's so imposing and kind of daunting and if he starts to back you up, and it's something that I try to do when I'm in my smaller fighters. Make them feel small, make them think, bloody hell, everywhere we go, this lad's here. But yeah, it is a big task, but I really do think he's got it in him. I really do think he's got it in him, and I hope so. Anyway, like I say, Herring's a good fighter, but he is very tricky. He's very awkward, and it's going to be a hard night's work. But I think if you can kind of drag Herring into that type of fight, that I've seen bits of Herring, but from what I've seen, he's never been in a fight like that, like the Santa Cruz fights or like the Warrington fights where Carl's been there and done it and got the T-shirt. And for me, I think that's his best bet.
Yeah, that's it. I think certainly going into this fight. Interestingly, I've seen Frampton in a couple of interviews say he believes he's going to be the stronger man, which, goes to show how hard he's been working. A couple of things for me, Brad. I hope his hands hold up. I think, the fight was postponed from February till this weekend because of injuries to Carl's hands, and we know he's broke his hands in fights previous, so we hope his hands hold up. But his experience, his big fight experience as well in the fights with Scott Quigg, Scott Quigg and Santa Cruz, the fact that he's got Jamie Moore in his corner, I think, if he was kind of building a team or an effort to go in there and beat someone like Jamel Herring, then Carl Frampton's ticked a lot of boxes. He's not going in there as like a novice or somebody that doesn't know what he's getting into, and he'll know he's fighting the bigger man, the taller man, the longer reach. And I'm sure they'll be working on things, and it just promises to be an exciting fight. It's historic, given that he's got the passion to become the first Irish 3-weight world champion. It's the first.
I'd love to get that over McGuigan as well, wouldn't he? You'd absolutely love to get that over McGuigan.
Absolutely. So we wish him the best for that. It's going to be a great bill, and it's looking like it's either going to be on IFL or even Channel 5 as well. So we're going to get a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, I see that Channel 5. Can't complain, like I said before, when you're paying for so much at the moment. You can't complain when you're getting top class free boxing on.
Yeah, we look forward to it and we wish him the best, as I say. But Brad, we've reached the 60 minutes, just over. It's been a pleasure having you on as my first guest for the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. We'll have you
Thanks
on.
so much for having me, mate. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed our chat. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, good man. So make sure our listeners are checking out Bradley Rea on Twitter, Instagram. Check out SimBoxx while you're on there as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Brad, we'll catch up again soon. Thank you.
Top man. Nice one, mate.